guys, I have a quick and easy project for you. If you still haven't given your loved ones a gift yet for the holidays, or you're planning for some future holidays, here's a very quick and easy method to make coasters. They're very personalized gifts. They carry a lot of emotion. The people you give them to have a lot of appreciation because you built them with your own hands. Let's get to it. So I ended up buying two hobby boards, as they call it, at your neighborhood Home Depot. This one is a walnut hobby board, which is a 1/4 of an inch thick, and I bought another one which is oak, which is about 1/2 an inch thick. So we're gonna make two different thickness coasters, and they're gonna have a very different look because walnut, obviously, as you can see, is a very dark and rich wood. It goes well with oil type of finishes. The oak is more brown orange, you can call it. So yeah, this is gonna make some nice coasters. Let's get to it. Now, to make things very simple and straightforward, we're just gonna say make a square coaster. So the thickness and the width of the coaster is going to be just how thick this piece is, and we're just going to measure that from this side and then make multiple cuts as needed for the number of coasters you want. So this particular board is about 9 centimeters. I have a centimeter ruler, so I'm just going to talk in centimeters for now, but this as written on this board is 3.5 inches wide. So I'm just going to mark 3.5 inches from the top side to here, and then we got a square, and then just repeat that measurement. I'm going to end up making 4 coasters with a base. I'll show you how to do that. So the way I'm thinking about it is I'm going to make the coasters out of walnut and the base out of this 1/2 inch oak, so that it serves two purposes. One is it gives the base a little heft so that the base doesn't move around as much when you put on the coasters on top of it, and it also gives a nice contrast between the coasters. Now, another nice thing I wanted to show you guys is the way I have tried to do it before. So this is how it looks. So this is pretty much what I did the last time. So this is called a 1x stock of walnut. So this is walnut, maple, and cherry. So that creates a very nice pattern, so you can create your coasters in a very different way. Now, this technique can be applied to any different kinds of woods, any different patterns that you want to be creative with. So yeah, you can go ahead and make it your own thing. The only problem with this approach for me was I don't have any power tools to speak of, so cutting coasters from this big slab of very hard wood was a very, very big challenge. My initial attempts of creating this came out to be okay, but as you can see, they're very non-uniform. My saw veered off when I was cutting them, and they just don't look that great as a gift. Now, I'm obviously going to use these at my home. I'm just going to finish them off, sand them. They actually are going to look very nice. It's just they don't look really good if you want to give this to someone and they're not sure if you put enough effort into it. So the easier method to go about this is the way I'm going to show you today. So I'm just going to mark 9 centimeters from the top and just continue that. I do want to account for the size or the width of my saw. So when you cut at the 9 centimeter mark, the saw width is about 1 or 2 millimeters, let's say, for a very thin saw. So I do want to count that in the next cut and so on. So I'm going to be a little careful about that. So the way I've measured this out, as you can see, I've counted for the width of the saw so that when I start cutting, each piece is going to be the exact same width, and we can cut right in the middle of these two lines, and we can be assured that the width of this piece is going to be the same as the length of this piece. So let's start cutting. Now, this is my Japanese pull saw, and this is what I'm going to use to quickly cut this off. Because this is a thin piece, it's going to cut really quickly. For bigger pieces, you might want to take your time and not veer off from a right angle. One down, 3 to go. That's it. So yeah, I'm gonna clean these up with some sanding, and then we're gonna add some nice round over to these corners so that they look a little bit better and they're not as sharp. These sharp corners tend to splinter quite a bit, so you have to be careful of that. So round over actually serves two purposes: aesthetic and structural. So let's do that now. This is just a simple wooden block, and I've wrapped a sandpaper around it, so that makes quick work of these thin pieces. So now you can see the difference between these two. This is the one we cut right now. This is my attempt of a sandwich coaster. It looks very different, but these don't look bad at all. These are really nice because this walnut is really going to pop up when you put a finish on the top of this. And as you can see, this is a very nice and stable coaster, and this one's like lumpy and badly cut. So if you have a miter saw at hand, or you can rent one very easily from Home Depot. I think it's for like $30 per day or $30 per 4 hours, something like that. So it's not that bad. If you want to make many of these at once, that investment is not that bad considering the price of the wood and the man hours you put in. Now the quickest way to put a standard round over on something is to use something like a can and just put it on the end, mark it, and you're done. And that gives a very nice edge to it, and you don't have to be very precise with this. You can eyeball it, kind of the radius, or you can, if you're if you have a compass lying around like that, that also makes it easy. So all you need to do is find the center point by joining the diagonals. And then take your compass, put it on there, see the desired width you want, and draw a nice round over all around. I'm just cutting the corners with a saw, but you can use a rasp, a jigsaw, or basically just a heavy grit sandpaper and get this done. So as you can see, this is shaping out pretty well. This is a nice round over. Once we're done with all four sides, so I'm still rough on this, so I'm gonna hone that with a rasp. And once that's done, it's gonna look pretty nice if you think about it. Look at that. Yeah, let's complete all four. Now that came out great. Now it's time to sand these. I have this small piece of drawer liner, which is a little grippy, so that helps in when I'm trying to sand these. I put the coaster on top of it and then sand it so that it doesn't move around. It's pretty sticky that way. Now what I have here is a piece of 220 grit sandpaper that really gives a very smooth finish, and for a project like these boards are pretty smooth to begin with, so you don't really have to do much to get them smooth enough to get some finish on them. Now we'll cut the base with the oak, and we'll give it the same treatment as the other ones. Now these are the ready coasters from the walnut, and we're just going to make the base, and I'll show you in a bit how we're going to use this base a little differently. Now thinking about this a bit, I think I'm going to leave the sharp corners a bit sharp here as against the other ones that I've smoothened out, just to give this a little bit of a different aesthetic approach in contrast with the different color of the wood. Just going to clean up these edges with a rasp first. I'm going to use the same drawer liner here. Okay, this is done. Now I'll show you how I'm thinking of making this a base. So instead of so you need a way to contain these. So if you just put this on, as you can see, it's the same width and the same height. So usually if you just want to make a holder like this, you would have to make the base a little bit bigger so that this can be put into it. But the way I think about it is, you put it at a diagonal like that, and then you have space here to put some steel pins that come up all the way up till here, and that makes it a very visually interesting piece, as well as adding some metal to wood always enhances the look of the piece. So this is what I'm gonna do. So I have this thin piece of steel that I also bought from the big box store. And it's pretty thin, but because it's metal, it's gonna be very sturdy. And as you saw here, we don't have that much of a gap left to, probably, I was initially thinking I'll put wooden dowels, but there's not enough space here for wooden dowels. So this, if I cut it to the right space, this becomes a really nice holder piece for the base. Now here's a neat trick. So if you don't have a drill press, but you need to drill very straight, because this needs it. Imagine if you have these pins and they are all like in different weird angles, it doesn't look like a very nice piece. So a nice trick here is to take just 2 pieces of scrap wood like this, have a little bit of offset between them, they should be flat on the bottom. So you can put them against the piece like this and take your drill bit, stick it in the hole that you want, and then press these 2 pieces right up against it. That actually creates a nice right angle for the drill to follow when you're drilling with a handheld drill like this. So make sure you have contact with both wood pieces with the drill, and that should give you a fairly straight drill. Now, as you can see, I have put some blue tape or painter's tape at the end of this drill bit. Now that's for depth, so I don't want to go more than this much depth into my piece of wood, because my piece of wood is not that thick. So the way I did it was, you hold it against the wood like this, mark your depth. So right now, as you can see, I'm not going all the way through, but I'm probably going like half to 3/4 of the way through the wood. So that should give me plenty of holding power for my pins. So here are the pins, nice and cut. These are steel pins that we just saw before. So these are 3/16 steel rods basically that I got. So I'm going to have a drill bit that's exactly the same size, 3/16 of an inch, and then make those holes in my base, which is made of oak. Okay, so as you can see now, the 4 holes have been drilled for the pins. Let's see how they fit. That is good. They are very straight. I mean, at least straight enough to not look out of symmetry. Alright guys, now for the best part, the finish. We've done the sanding, we've done the shaping, we've put the pins in. Now we have to put a nice finish on it. So I'm using a wipe-on poly, but you can use any finish of your choice. I also recommend using something like a Danish oil, so just an oil finish, but you do want to remember that these are coasters, so they will be prone to drops and drips and stuff falling on it, like coffee, water, drinks. So you don't want just oil to be protecting the wood, you want it to last at least for a very long time. So you should protect it with something like a polyurethane or lacquer or something like that. Okay. So I have my poly, I'm just going to brush it on. Look at that beautiful color pop up from the walnut. Like, this is the best part about working with walnut. It's just beautiful when it takes the finish. So I'm going to use the pins that this already has and prop it up on its pins. That gives me a nice surface for it to stand while it takes the polyurethane. Look at that. Even this one, this color has popped up quite a bit. It's very nice. Very nice.